What made Last of Us multiplayer so good? First, let me say this. Sacrificing the multiplayer for a better single player is an option I will take no matter how many times they force me to pick one. I'm very picky with newer games, going on my all-time list for what I really love and love to play, and Last of Us was just one of those games that did it. As an adult, I don't get a lot of free time. It's very rare that I beat a game and start over and play it immediately like that. And it just was that game. I did it right away. I know that's not a big deal to some people, but I don't have a lot of free time. I've given up all kinds of hobbies that I have because I've got a kid, I've got a wife. I mean, at this point, I've beaten Last of Us about 4 times, and honestly, I plan on playing it again right before the new one comes out. But realistically, we're here to talk about how good the multiplayer is. There are a ton of multiplayer games out there in this day and age, and such as Call of Duty, Fortnite, Rainbow Six Siege. Last of Us is nothing like those games. It does something that gives it its own identity. There's things like resource management and tight team combat and unique weapons. And they may not sound like crazy or cool, unique things, but all of these, when they combine together in that game, they make it so that it's one hell of an exceptional multiplayer experience. You see, in Last of Us, you have to be very particular about what resources you decide to use and what you would like to craft. Do you make a shiv for a quick point, or do you make the Molotov so you can keep your distance and get a good takedown? If you don't work as a team in this game, you will be punished severely for it. Trust me, I've been punished multiple times for it. Look, I'm not even that great at the multiplayer. I'm pretty terrible, but at best, I'm average, I guess. But with this multiplayer, even when I was getting absolutely thrashed, I still enjoyed my time with it. Of course, I'd throw a fit, maybe swear a bit, whatever. It is what it is. But you're supposed to work as a team, and if you did, it really paid off. The weapons, oh man, the weapons you got, they're just very different in this game. Yeah, you have the atypical weapons like an assault rifle or a burst rifle, a hunting rifle, all that stuff. They sound like atypical weapons. But what I mean is that they feel unique to the game. They feel so visceral, like when you hit somebody, it actually feels like you're hitting somebody. You hear the grunting. You see character models stumble back because they've been hurt by you. I mean, I've never played a game where the bow and arrow actually feels satisfying when you hit somebody and you connect with that fucking hit and you make it so that it works. That very gritty and grounded feeling that you get from the single player translates over to the multiplayer. How many games actually do that and do it well? I mean, hell, even with your fists, when you're punching somebody, you actually feel like you're punching a human being. The controller rumbles and everything. It just feels so, I don't know, good's the right word, but to me it does. Feels really good, and it feels so realistic. Like, you feel weighted punches behind all that. I mean, some of my favorite multiplayer memories are from this game, playing it on PS3 and PS4. I've never felt like I wasn't enjoying myself, even when I had terrible matches, when I just would get completely trounced, and it would just be a complete, utter defeat. But I still enjoyed it. And I just can't help but think about all the wasted potential with the idea of doing a Last of Us 2 multiplayer. I mean, once they announced Last of Us 2, all I could think about was, where's the story going to go? Where's this going to go? But at the same time, it was also, what are they going to do with the multiplayer? Because realistically, the multiplayer was, in the first one, it was tacked on. But at this point, it's supposed to be getting a full experience. They call it faction mode, but it's whatever you want to call it, I guess. But I don't think Naughty Dog expected it to become quite as tremendous as it was. But there's always room for improvement. Honestly, like the way that they did it, there's just different things you need. Like picture this scenario. You're playing 4v4 and your team's moving around a map without making much sound. Then you spot an enemy. and there's a group of infected right in front of you. One of your guys in your team says screw it and just starts opening fire on the enemy team. Boom! Next thing you know, your whole team is being swarmed. Let's say, I don't know, 2 runners and 2 clickers. Your buddy gets instantly taken down by a clicker, and you run for cover, and the enemy is moving up. Then one of their guys fires, and the closest infected gets pretty much aggroed by them. So you have to choose: do you take out the infected, or you take out the opposing team for the point? Then before you know it, a bloater could come up and just out of nowhere, just to join in the fun because he heard all the ruckus, that he literally gives you a fucking just blows up in your face and ends up killing you. I mean, that would be so cool to see in the game. No other game does that. Call of Duty doesn't try to do that, and neither does any other multiplayer experience I can think of. I love Overwatch, but it's just not there. They don't have that. I've seen this kind of stuff in multiplayer over and over. The same thing with, like, I love playing things that just are, I don't know, empty, mindless shooters, so to speak. But they have their purpose, and they're always there, and they're going to serve a purpose. And that's fine. But giving a unique experience like Last of Us's multiplayer did, that's always something you can do. You can try to craft something new and different. And it would be just a tremendous waste to see Naughty Dog not even try to do it. I don't want to see them put out a multiplayer game that is based on their next IP. No, forget that. I want to see it based on Last of Us. I don't care if it's a Last of Us multiplayer that's standalone and I gotta pay separate for it. As long as the single player for Last of Us is a good romp, and it plays, and it is worth every penny that I spend on that $60 copy of that game, I want to play that game. And I will be glad to pay every penny. If they decide to put out a multiplayer later that's like $30 standalone, I will gladly pay for that. I just want to see them do what they want to do. I don't want to see Naughty Dog basically move on to their next IP and then shove multiplayer down our throat. No, this has so much potential. It's oozing with it. And they just don't want to do it. Well, I shouldn't say they don't want to do it, but we don't know whether or not they want to do it. I would love to say yes, because I'm hoping that they do, considering that they had talked about how they had worked on the multiplayer and that they were doing this, that, and the other to try and make it work. But they never full-on committed to it, I get. Well, they did full-on commit to it, essentially. It wasn't until recently that they said that they weren't going to do it. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of taken back a bit by that. Am I pissed? Not exactly, because I would rather have a really good single-player experience. Because just like with God of War, they tried to add multiplayer into God of War, and it just didn't work. It has the potential, it just didn't work in the facet that they tried to put it through. Maybe someday it'll work, I don't know, but I'd rather have a really good storyline. But, I don't know, that's just me. I'm not about multiplayer as much as I am about a good story. But again, we're getting off track here. The multiplayer is what matters. And I just think that if Naughty Dog skips out on the idea of making a really good multiplayer game with The Last of Us 2's engine and how they have everything set up, they'd be crazy to squander that all away. They don't need to do that. I mean, for the sake of something completely different, I would love to see them put out a not a brand new, but a unique multiplayer experience, because we just don't have enough of those. And I don't honestly care if it comes after launch. If it comes 6 months, hell, even a year later after launch, I'm okay with that. I'm just tired of the ocean of stagnant shooters and multiplayer mediocrity that comes out year after year after year. We get Call of Duty, and I'm not going to lie, the new Call of Duty looks amazing. Actually, for once in the first time in a long time, the single player looks really good. But I would love to see something different come out that isn't just a first-person shooter feeding into the machine of just mediocrity that everyone loves to funnel into. Or in some cases, such with Fortnite, funnel into that mediocrity. It's just the same crap day in and day out, and I would love to see I would love to see Naughty Dog throw into the mix and be like, hey, here's a brand new idea that is completely different, that is not the same as every cookie cutter. Because some people might compare it to like another zombie game or whatever, but realistically, it's nothing like The Last of Us. Or, I mean, The Last of Us, wow. It's nothing like Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead is a very unique game as well, but it is not the same kind of uniqueness as Last of Us. They're very different kinds of things. Because I'm not talking about PvP where some people play as zombies. I'm like, no, I'm talking about, in a way, I'm talking about PvP versus E. Like, they would be thrown into the mix. And a lot of people look at it as like, oh, they're bots, whatever, yada, yada, yada. No, they're not bots. Treat them as they are. They are infected that you have to deal with, that are more or less an obstacle between you and the other team that you have to end up basically defeating. And that would be the way to do it. But, those are just my thoughts, and I hope Naughty Dog takes that into consideration. I don't care if it takes them 6 months or a year. Hell, port the game over to PS5 for all I care. I'd be all for it. As long as the multiplayer is there, I just think it would be a huge waste not to do it. That's all I got to say. That's it.